here, and welcome to Coming Soon Movie News with Niklsun. I'm your host, and on this show, every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, we'll be going over all of the day's movie news and going around what it means for the production in general, such as casting decisions, trailer announcements, director announcements, things like that. So, without any further ado, let's get started with today's Hot Topics. And the first topic that we have to talk about today, Entertainment Weekly has brought out this great article about the upcoming Avengers Age of Ultron in anticipation of its Comic-Con panel. Now, a couple of things have been unveiled, a lot of plot details, and certain things that we didn't quite know about have been confirmed now through this. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go over the first set of photos that was actually released for the film. So the first picture that we have here is actually of Chris Evans and Chris Hemsworth as both Captain America and Thor, respectively. Kind of a standard photo that you would see in a superhero film, but one of the things that you'll notice is Captain America's suit is different and updated. I did talk about this a couple of weeks ago, actually it was probably about 2 months ago now, when they were actually filming. But as you can see, the suit is very much taken from his original 1943, his World War II outfit. And he even, at the end of Captain America Winter Soldier, well not the end, but maybe about 2/3 of the way through, he went and got his World War II uniform back. And so this is a deviation of that, essentially. It's very similar, but a little bit more updated and modern. But one of the things about all the costumes, and you'll see that on, especially on Black Widow's costume, they're all Avengers outfits. These are all things that Tony Stark himself has actually created. And so they all have the Avengers logo on their arms, except for, I believe Thor does not have that because his is an Asgardian uniform. His was not created by Tony Stark, so I don't think he's going to have it. But all of them are basically utilizing, they are utilizing Avengers uniforms that were created by Tony Stark. The next photo we have here is being dubbed the Science Brothers. And so with the Science Brothers, we have both Mark Ruffalo and Robert Downey Jr. as Bruce Banner and Tony Stark. So we have a scene that a lot of people have been calling for from the first film. We have these two brainiacs just kind of let loose in this research and development section of Avengers Tower, which I'm really excited to see their banter back and forth, because the little bits that we did get in the first film were really, they were some of the better parts of the movie, just because of the chemistry between all the cast, but these two especially. Like I'm very excited to see it. The next photo that we have here is actually a confirmation of a scene which was revealed in a breakdown of the opening 20 minutes of the film. So this here is a party scene at Avengers Tower after the initial action sequence. I don't think it spoils anything that the people who we're seeing here, and they look like they're kind of happy that they won because it's at the beginning of an Avengers film. They're not going to defeat the Avengers at the very beginning. So that wouldn't make too much sense. The one thing to take away from this picture, we will first look at Rhodey from the Iron Man films in Avengers. Now, a lot of people have been saying, well, this confirms War Machine's going to be in the movie. No, it doesn't. From my understanding and what I've heard from certain sources, this is the only section of the movie that Rhodes will appear in. He might appear very similar to how Pepper Potts appeared in the first Avengers. He may do the same thing in Avengers 2, in which case you'll see him near the end, but still as James Rhodes. He will not be War Machine, as far as I'm aware. But yeah, it's just a little shindig at Avengers Tower, which is kind of cool. And this, again, is set to take place early on in the film. The next picture that we have here is the first official look at both Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch. Now, the one thing that I have to say about Quicksilver's uniform, and it is the same thing I said about Evan Peters' uniform, is good God. This uniform is atrocious. It looks horrible. The colors on it, the reasoning behind it, like a lot of times uniforms can look a little silly, but if they're practical, if they make sense, if there's a reason why they look like that, then that's fine. Then they fit within the context of the scene. I do not see one way how this could fit into the context of any scene. He's got those little lightning bolts on his sides. I don't see it. I don't understand it. That and his bleach blonde hair, I really don't get that. Although I think it is supposed to be silver, although it is bleach blonde. Still, it's terrible, but I mean, hey, he may wow us. The one thing that I am against is that both these characters, Wanda and Peter, both are of Eastern European descent. They both will have accents in the film, as far as my understanding. And I don't like that, because they don't need to be. That's not a core aspect of their characters. and they don't necessarily need to be. Have Aaron Taylor Johnson, have Elizabeth Olsen put on a British accent, and have them both be siblings that are from Britain or from England or you know, anywhere around there, because it's going to take away part of the performance, and that can be detrimental to the overall experience of the movie. So I don't particularly like that. I do like Scarlet Witch's uniform because it's modern. It's kind of how someone in that mindset would dress, because she would have a couple of screws loose because she is a witch. Like, she's a witch. Let's be honest here. So yeah, I mean, it's practical. It gets the point across. It's not as ridiculous looking as her comic book counterpart. But yeah, I mean, it works for me. It's just Quicksilver, again, I don't know why it's so difficult for them to adapt that character physically. It just, to me, he just looks ridiculous no matter which way you swing it. His character was pulled off almost perfectly in Days of Future Past, but we're going to have to wait almost a year to see whether or not he stacks up in this. The next picture, we get our first official look at Black Widow in her new uniform. Now, the uniform looks very similar. It looks a little bit more motorcycle-y. Like, it looks like she's got a zipper going up her arm that she can actually open up her arm if she needs to, or her sleeve, I should say. But the gauntlets are the biggest thing that have been added to this. So the gauntlets that she had in Avengers 1 were just these little black things that are these little blue lights that came up. These ones are much larger, and as far as I'm aware, from what I've been told, they can deliver a lethal shock, not just one to subdue somebody. So they may even be able to shoot the shocks. I'm not aware of that. That's just me speculating, just judging by the design of them here. But yeah, and one can always notice that Scarlett Johansson is very pregnant in this shot. Now, this could be what they're planning on doing in terms of, this could have been one of the first shots, or this could be CGI replacement on just making sure that, you know, there is no evidence of a baby bump, because she was like 3 or 4 months pregnant when they started filming. So there was something there. They definitely have concealed it. The next picture here is actually this one a lot of people have been talking about because it's the first official picture of what Hawkeye is going to look like in his trench coat. Now, the trench coat is a major staple of his costume in the comic books, and showcasing the fact that it's retaining the same color pattern. It's kind of like a burgundy mixed with purple, you know, and he's got his new armbands. He's got a much larger quiver. So, I mean, overall, it's kind of the standard shot that you would get from Hawkeye, but it's really nice to see that they are going more towards what his comic book counterpart would look like. So that's really intriguing. And then the last shot that we have here is actually, I find this kind of funny. It's the closet of the Avengers, essentially. So you got the Iron Man suit, Captain America, you got the Thor suit, Black Widow, Hulk stretchy pants, because he is wearing stretchy pants in this movie, Hawkeye's uniform, and then we have Nick Fury there in the background. Now, Samuel L. Jackson came out a while ago and said that Nick Fury's not going to be in this movie as much as he was in the first one. So he's going to be much more of a reduced role. My feeling is that he's going to have a role similar to what he did in Iron Man 2, where he's going to pop up here and there, but for the most part, he's not going to really be seen. That would make a lot of sense, especially considering the fact they are introducing 5 new characters. They are introducing Ultron, they're introducing Vision, they are introducing Scarlet Witch, they're introducing Quicksilver, and they're introducing Baron von Strucker. Those are the only characters that I believe we know of that they are introducing new, on top of the existing characters that they already have. So I mean, that to me is kind of fascinating, the fact that that they are aware of that, and they are not necessarily giving someone a larger role just for the sake of giving them a larger role. They are doing it out of what the story needs, and that's always a plus. That's always what you want the creative minds to do, because that means they have the story in mind, not someone's ego, or not the fact that this movie's not going to be as good as we want it to be. We need to sell it on that person, so we need to have them in it more. That's not the case. This shows a lot of promise, and the fact that this is going to be a really intriguing and unique film. So, I mean, a couple of things that were also talked about in the Entertainment Weekly article were things that we didn't quite know. Now, this is probably going to contain some spoilers for those of you who want to go in kind of fresh, but these are things that are definitely going to be unveiled in the trailer. So these are going to be coming out. The studios officially unveiled them, so we know that these are not necessarily spoilers per se, because they weren't leaked. These were deliberately released on behalf of the studio. So the first one was, it confirms that Tony Stark created Ultron, who is a self-aware, self-replicating, self-teaching robot. So he's very sentient, he understands everything. Tony actually created him using a part of his own personality, but not the whole thing. So Ultron actually views that the entire problem with the way the world is right now is humanity. Kind of the same trope that you see whenever it's a sentient robot uprising. But Ultron's plan is to eliminate humans in order to save the world. And an actual quote that Joss Whedon released from Ultron himself. This is what Ultron says in the movie. Whether or not it makes it to the final cut is another story. I would say so. But I know you're good people. I know you mean well. But you just didn't think it through. There's only one path to peace. Your extermination. And Chris Evans even in an interview talked about how like Ultron is a very brilliant character. Like he's someone who is very nuanced and very intelligent, someone who you could sit down and have an intellectual conversation with, and what he says is beautiful. Like, it's almost beautiful how he talks. And hearing that come out of James Spader is going to be unbelievable. Like, that's going to be incredible. I am very, very excited to at least see or hear something from this film. I know they are going to be screening footage next week at Comic-Con. Most likely it won't make its way online, but it's just, I just need to, I want to see something from this movie because it's tangible. We know that it exists now. We have photographs from this movie, official photographs, not just on set. Another thing that the Entertainment Weekly article talked about, Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver will definitely be villains in this film. They apparently have a major hate for the Avengers. Now, whether or not that stays true throughout the whole film is another story. We've been hearing for a while that the Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver will start out as villains under the mind control of Baron von Strucker, because Baron von Strucker has Loki's staff. Okay, for those of you who don't want to know anything, because this was not released in the EW article, I'm going to talk about something that could potentially be spoilery. So for those of you who don't want to hear this, skip ahead about a minute or two. But I'm going to talk about this. So part of a little bit of footage was screened in London over the past week, and a lot of it was behind the scenes. But one of the things that people always also wrote down was there's a shot of Tony Stark holding Loki's scepter. So that most likely means that the intro action sequence to the movie is going to involve Baron von Strucker in some capacity, and they are going to defeat him in some capacity. Whether or not they kill him, they arrest him, or he just drops the staff and runs off, we still don't know. But the Avengers will get a hold of the staff, and that's most likely how they are able to turn Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch back to being good guys, or at least to being good guys. We still don't know. Okay, spoilers done. Ultron, here's a couple other things too. Ultron will create Vision, as he did in the comics. Vision is a new character that's being introduced, played by Paul Bettany, and he will create that character in this movie as a way to showcase that he's not the only, or that he is also able to create life, not just Tony Stark, or not just human beings, that a machine can actually generate life as well. And Paul Bettany will be embodying Vision. Now, a lot of people have been saying, well, he's a sentient robot, and he also is the voice of Jarvis. Is there going to be a connection? Is Jarvis going to be somehow manipulated and uploaded into Vision? Is that what's going to happen? And Joss Whedon, very reluctantly, and he wouldn't elaborate on this, but he did confirm that there is a connection between Jarvis and Vision. But again, he would not elaborate on it. He wouldn't go any further, because that's probably going to get into spoiler territory, but I think he was getting tired of being asked that question or seeing it pop up, and he just wanted to lay that to rest. But with all this information being discussed and all of this information coming out, also on top of that, before I get to the end here, the cover of Entertainment Weekly was actually the first look at what the cinematic version of Ultron will look like. Granted, it's not a CGI render, it's more of an artistic concept drawing with his minions in the back. But I want to see a fully CGI rendered version, and I think that's what's going to be shown in the footage at Comic-Con next week. But the fact that we still haven't gotten our first official look at him outside of this concept art is really unique, because as you can see, he's not polished, he's not, like, he looks grungy, he looks dirty, and that would not be a robot. A robot like that would not look like that, because he can upgrade himself, he can alter himself. So to me, it was very interesting that they did release that, but I want to see the actual photo. I want to see him actually in motion. More importantly, I want to see him with James Spader's voice behind him and quoting those lines. I think that'd be really, really cool. But what we're probably going to get in the footage is the first official movement of Ultron and actually him talking, and probably a snippet of finalized CG from, or maybe not even finalized, but just CG of the Hulkbuster Hulk fight that we know is going to happen. That was also a previs of that segment was actually shown in this footage, and people were floored by it. So I'm very much looking forward to that. But yeah, when the information comes out of Comic-Con, it'll most likely just be a footage breakdown, because Comic-Con generally does not release any footage online once it's been shown there. It's a way to get people to actually want to go, because you're not going to see it ever. The Guardians of the Galaxy trailer, the first one that came out back in February, was the same trailer except for that beginning segment. The rest of the trailer, once he got to the ship and they did the roll call, that was all in the trailer they showed at Comic-Con last year. And they waited 7 months to showcase that trailer. And it was the same thing. It just had another little sequence at the beginning. So they're probably going to do something like that. But Avengers 2 Age of Ultron opens up May 1st, 2015. If we get more information about it on here, I'll definitely update you guys. All right, and the next topic that we have to talk about is a project that's been in development hell for a while. As far as I'm aware, it's Universal who has been trying to make a feature film adaptation of the video game Uncharted for a while now, for several years. It got so far as David O. Russell, the director of Silver Linings Playbook, The Fighter, American Hustle, he had signed on to direct. He had cast Mark Wahlberg as Nathan Drake. They reconfigured the character of Sullivan to be Nathan Drake's father, not his father figure, and they cast Robert De Niro in that role, and then they got Joe Pesci to come in as an uncle who they created for the movie. And they were going to make it this family adventure to get to this treasure, and that was completely don't call it Uncharted, call it something else. It's not Uncharted. That is not Uncharted. I'm sorry. It didn't make any sense, and eventually that whole project fell apart. And then another director came on. I can't remember the name of him, but then he dropped off very quickly. And now Seth Gordon, the director of Horrible Bosses, has actually signed on. Now, a lot of people will say, well, I don't want a guy who directed a comedy to do this. I have 2 examples for you. The first one, Seth Gordon himself has actually directed a great documentary called The King of Kong. And The King of Kong just showcased the immense talent that this guy has. Like, Horrible Bosses, I found was hilarious, and it had a lot of really great, interesting moments in it, but, I mean, it was kind of a by-the-numbers type of movie. But when you watch The King of Kong, you can really see the deft hand this guy has behind the camera. Even though it's a documentary, he still has to construct it in a certain way. And so him coming on board to direct a film like this, I have hope for it. I think he could do a pretty good job. But he's actually came out in an interview and said that they're hoping to start filming in early 2015. That's their plan. Now, we don't have a cast yet. We don't have, as far as I'm aware, they have not talked about who's actually writing the script, but he does talk about what their ideas are for the film. But he says they are honoring the most important stuff from the first game, so the thematic elements from the first game, not necessarily the overall storyline, but they are building from there. And he went on to say that even fans of the games themselves, like diehard fans who have been waiting for this, do not want to see the first game just turned into a movie. They want to see this world turn into a movie. They want to see the character of Nathan Drake go on another adventure in this world. And I personally think that's a fantastic idea. I don't want to see the first game. It was already cinematic. They made those games almost like movies, especially the second one. Like the train sequence alone was incredible, and the fact that he's coming out and saying, listen, we're not doing that. We're taking the core concepts and we're adapting them into a new story. That, to me, is the right direction. That's the way they need to go, because you take everything that people love about the game, but you give them something new. It's almost like them getting a new video game, but just in movie form. Very fine line that these games draw, because they are very much like movies, but he did talk about in terms of who they're going to get to play Drake. He didn't name anybody. He didn't even give a breakdown. All he did say is he wants a great actor first and foremost. They are not going to go after fame in order to sell this project. They are going to go for someone who can handle this character. Now, right now, if they had to go with somebody famous, I said this about a month and a half ago or so, when we were talking about the reboot of Indiana Jones. And I said at that time, don't do a reboot of Indiana Jones necessarily. Don't use Bradley Cooper as Indiana Jones. I think he would be perfect for the role of Nathan Drake, because he's got that bravado, that charisma that Nathan Drake, the character, has. The other person who I would choose, and only if he hit the gym and lost maybe 40 pounds or so, is Nathan Fillion. Because first off, Nathan Fillion is awesome. Who has not seen him, anyone who has not seen him, you need to check out Firefly. He's pretty good on Castle, but watch Slither. He's fantastic on Slither. But he's got this charisma about him, this bravado that is perfect. It's almost like they modeled Nathan Drake after Nathan Fillion. That's how similar they are. They even look similar. And so for someone like Nathan Fillion to get that role, I think it would be perfect. But if they had to go A-list, I would choose Bradley Cooper. If not, go unknown. Do what Marvel did with Thor and get someone like Chris Hemsworth, who was unknown at the time. He had a few little roles here and there, but nothing big. And they got him, and he just blew it out of the water. He was a great Thor. So the film doesn't have a release date yet, but if they are planning on filming in early 2015, I wouldn't put summer 2016 release date out of the question. I would even go so far as to say it's probably going to be August. August seems like the right time to release a movie like this. Each month, when you look at it, almost has a distinctive view as to what types of movies are going to be. May are the big summer tentpoles. June are generally a lot more of the comedy, and the animated films are in June. July, for the most part, has always been a strong month. This year is not that strong of a July. I mean, yeah, granted, Dawn of the Planet of the Apes was amazing, but just looking at the lineup, it's nothing to sneeze at. Like it's kind of a weak lineup. But July normally has the off-kilter movies, and that, well, I mean, look at next summer. It's got Ant-Man. I mean, perfect example. It was originally going to be Batman v Superman. And then you look at August, and August is almost the dump month for summer films. It's the summer films that they know that are going to make a little bit of money, but they're not overly good. August is usually the month that they go in. That's why in August we have like Expendables 3. It's a movie that critics are not going to like, but people are going to enjoy it, and releasing it in August is not going to have all that much competition. But we do have Guardians of the Galaxy coming out, which I've been hearing amazing things about. People who have seen it, who have said it's unbelievable. And John Campea at AMC Movie Talk is actually lucky enough to go and see it today. That bastard. So, I mean, I can't wait to hear what he says. He's probably just going to say it was awesome, and that's all he's allowed to say. They're probably going to be under embargo. But yeah, I would not be shocked if they came out and said this movie's coming out in summer 2016. So when we get more information about this project, I will definitely update you guys on here. All right, and the final topic that we have to talk about today is Universal has, and we've talked about this before, but Universal is now moving full steam ahead on their shared classic monsters universe. So this means that we're going to be getting movies that will involve simultaneously, not necessarily in the same film, but in multiple films that will be in the same world, Dracula, Frankenstein's monster, The Mummy, The Creature from the Black Lagoon, The Wolfman, and plenty of others. Like, we're going to get all these, and it's going to be a cohesive universe where they're all going to fit similar to how Marvel's doing it, but not the same way. And Alex Kurtzman and Roberto Orci were originally spearheading this new cinematic universe. Well, about a month ago, they announced they were splitting up. They were no longer going to be writing partners for one reason or another. And people were kind of wondering what was going to happen with this. And so they've actually brought on Alex Kurtzman is staying involved. He's the guy who wrote such films as the Star Trek reboots. He wrote Fringe and co-created Fringe. He's working on Sleepy Hollow right now, which is one of my favorite new television series. And he's writing and directing the upcoming Venom spinoff from Spider-Man. So he's got a lot of projects on the go right now, but he did say in an interview that this is what is first and foremost for him right now. With Sony, they're working on Sinister Six right now, and then after that, Venom will shoot after that. So it is confirmed that Sinister Six will be the first one out of the gate outside of those two. But the other writer that they brought on to replace Roberto Orci is Chris Morgan. Now, Chris Morgan is mostly known for writing the Fast and the Furious Tokyo Drift, the Fast and Furious, Fast 5, Fast and Furious 6, and Fast and Furious 7. So those are the two guys that are going to be developing these films. So that means that we're going to get some really cool mythology mixed in with some hopefully pretty cool action sequences. But they went even one step further to say that not all of these monsters are going to get their own films necessarily. Certain ones will, and other ones will be more supporting characters in other films, much like what they did with Black Widow in the recent Captain America film. She wasn't the main character, but she was a very heavily utilized supporting character, and that's probably what they're going to do. Something like, you know, like kind of what they did in Van Helsing, but better. Dracula could use Frankenstein's monster for something, and that would have both of them in the same film. Or you could have the Mummy and the Invisible Man in 2 films. You know, you could do something like that. So we still don't know what direction they're going to go. One thing they are teasing is the possibility, and this is more so that they've just mentioned it. They've, I think, mentioned it to him as well, but nothing is come about from this, so take what I say with a grain of salt. But they are looking at potentially getting Guillermo del Toro involved in the Frankenstein movie in some capacity. I believe they want him to write and direct it, or at least direct it. And most likely what will happen is, because he's so busy, that he will just become a producer on the film. Most likely, if it does end up coming out. But yeah, that's all we have on this so far. I mean, I've been talking about this for a while, that this is something that they were planning on doing, and now we know they're moving full steam ahead. The Mummy will be the first one out the gate. They don't have a director right now. The director dropped off a couple months ago, so they've still been looking for a new guy to take the reins, but The Mummy will be the first out of all the movies released, and it'll come out on April 22nd, 2016. So when we get more information about this project or anything else involving the cinematic monster universe, I'll definitely update you guys on here. All right, just before we wrap up the show, I want to give a little bit of a Comic-Con update. So they did announce today that the first full trailer for The Hunger Games Mockingjay Part 1 would be debuting at Comic-Con next week. So we know for a fact that we are going to be getting some kind of footage from that film outside of these cool little teasers that they've been putting out. By the way, the teasers are really intriguing. But it will be debuting next week. Most likely it'll be online right after that, so when it does come out, I'll definitely be updating that on here. But most footage that is screened, I talked about this earlier, but most footage that's screened at Comic-Con is never shown online. They usually will just do footage breakdown, so people who went to it, they will say, oh, we saw this, and this, but we never actually get a chance to see the footage. Occasionally, there is the leaked version, like the leaked Guardians of the Galaxy trailer that I saw back in like September. Which ended up being the same trailer that was. I was looking forward to that trailer so much that I find out it's pretty much the same trailer, just better quality. I was a little peeved about that. I thought they were going to do something different. But if any of the footage does come online, I will definitely be talking about it on here. And I want to give a little bit of an update, because I have been saying that I'm going to be doing an episode when I'm down there, hopefully on Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And it's looking likely that I may not be able to do that, because again, I do live up here in Canada, so I don't have an American plan in terms of internet usage. The hotel that I'm staying at does offer Wi-Fi, but I've stayed at hotels that offer Wi-Fi and you can barely get a web page open, let alone uploading a video. So we'll take that day by day, but as it stands right now, I should be hopefully having an episode up on Thursday, then the Friday, then the Saturday, and the Sunday as recaps for all the daily news that came out. And then again, I will come back and have the first full show of Coming Soon Movie News with Niklsun back up and running on the Wednesday. So keep your eyes out for that. I will be updating through Twitter and Facebook whether or not I am able to get these episodes up and running. So just keep your mind out, or keep an eye out for those posts. And yeah, hopefully everything goes smoothly and we're able to get some of these videos up, because Comic-Con is going to be one hell of a time this year. Alright, well that'll do it for us here on Coming Soon Movie News with Niklsun. Thank you so much for watching. You guys have been a great audience. You can go ahead and click subscribe there in the bottom corner and get updates whenever we post a new video. You can follow me on Twitter at Niklsun, Niklsun, for all of your movie update information. And you can also find us on our Facebook page at www.facebook.com/movienewswithniklsun, where you can start a discussion or just ask a general question, which will generally be answered on every Friday episode. Now, normally I usually do get questions throughout the week because of things that have been happening. My dad just recently had surgery, so I'm taking care of him, and haven't been able to take care of certain things on the show. That's actually why Wednesday's episode was canceled. But yeah, post any questions that you guys have about anything involving films, and I'll be glad to talk about it on the show. And I know I've said this before, but hopefully in the next couple of weeks we're going to be getting some kind of a co-host on here. So it's going to be a back and forth discussion between me and the other person. So stay tuned for that. I'll definitely be posting updates when we have something locked in. I am talking to some people right now, so I'm definitely getting excited about this. It's going to be a nice little change of pace for Movie News with Niklsun, which will be good. But yeah, that'll do it for us here on Coming Soon. You guys have been great, and you can enjoy the rest of your day. You take care.